Alright guys, and good afternoon, and today is the 19th of August 2022. It's just coming up to 12:30 p.m. here in the UK, and so we start by let me just check actually first that the sound is working, and so audio and video seem to be working. Let me just double check that that everything's in order, so we don't have any surprises and I end up talking to myself for the first 5 minutes. Just bear with me. If anybody is in the chat, can you please let me know if everything's working fine, if the sound and the video is working. I think it all looks fine here on OBS. I'll just give you guys a couple of minutes because there's usually a lag. You guys can hear me okay? Sounds good. Okay, brilliant. That's great. So let's crack on straight away. As you can see here from the cryptocurrency heat map, everything is in the red with very few exceptions. We've had a nice pullback on the crypto market, and I mean, like, pretty much everything is in the red. There's very few exceptions here. With Spell being up 16%, Stargate being up 117%. I'm not sure why, but there must be some news. It must be like fundamentally driven. But either way, everything is up. Everything is down significantly, with Bitcoin being down 7%, and same for Ethereum. On the stock market, the great majority of it is in neutral. Some of it is in the red, but you can see that the great majority of it is in grey. So basically just kind of less than 1% movement. Some of it in the green, like I said, some of it in the red, but nothing really significant. Now, let's just have a look at why I'm looking at the stock market, and we'll start with the S&P. And you can see that the S&P has been historically very highly correlated to Bitcoin. As you can see here, the S&P is in blue, Bitcoin in orange, of course. And you can see that the great majority of the time this has been like very highly correlated. Things started changing mid-June to the end of June, where Bitcoin didn't respond well to the S&P parabolic move here to the upside. Bitcoin carried on printing lower highs, and then Bitcoin like slowly followed, and we started seeing some highs here the last sort of month, seeing a little rally up to the upside. But as you can see, really nothing in comparison to what the S&P has done here with this parabolic move to the upside, with Bitcoin doing a few sort of like higher highs and higher lows, but nothing like what we've seen here, right? So some will say that the correlation is slightly broken. Now, what I can see is that in some aspects the correlation to the downside is a little bit more responsive than to the upside. Okay, and we'd seen this before here with some of the correlation. For example, here with the S&P going up, and yes, Bitcoin was not going up at all, but yet when the S&P came down, Bitcoin came down as well. So there is a correlation to the downside, even though there's not it's skewed to the downside rather than to the upside. We saw the same here with a correction here on the S&P, and of course we saw the correction on Bitcoin as well. Correction on the S&P, we saw the correction on Bitcoin as well, right? Even though we had a little impulse to the upside and then a correction down, we didn't see much of an impulse here on Bitcoin. So, you know, you can see that the correlation is slightly diverging and more sort of correlated to the downside than it is to the upside. That's not good news for Bitcoin, of course. Here we've seen a little bit of a pullback. Nothing significant, but we saw a little bit of a pullback here on the S&P and a significant pullback on Bitcoin. So that's a sign that there's not many buyers, or that the buyers are exhausted. And we've definitely found some sellers here on Bitcoin. On the Nasdaq is very much the same situation, where it'd been very, very closely correlated, especially to the downside. We saw a nice big impulse here on the Nasdaq. Let me just take the magnet off a second. So a nice big impulse here on the Nasdaq, Not much of a reaction here on Bitcoin yet. When we have a correction, Bitcoin corrects as well. Same here, we saw an impulse, but Bitcoin does the impulse as well, but the correlation is definitely to the downside, and the same again and again. And now we saw a little bit of a breakdown here on the Nasdaq, and of course a massive breakdown on Bitcoin. So again, make of that what you will, but what it looks to me like is that even though the legacy markets are on a risk-off kind of approach, Bitcoin is failing to find the bidders. So that's what I can see here in terms of the correlation. So the correlation is not broken as such, but it's definitely skewed to the downside. So let's have a look at the S&P and see what's been going on. If you guys look, or if you guys watched my technical analysis update from this week on Monday, you knew that we were targeting basically the yearly VWAP, which is basically exactly where we kind of where we got stopped there, basically, right? So that's basically resistance. And like I said, it was very good news that we broke above this level of resistance here, which was the 2021 VWAP, right? We had basically bounced, not this, it was the exponential moving average. No, it wasn't that one, it was this one, right? So this is the 200 exponential moving average, and that's basically where we bounced from. We found resistance at the value area low of 2021 VWAP, which was here. Once we broke above that, I did say to you guys, you can look back at the videos, that the next level of resistance would be taking out these highs in order to break market structure, which was the 2021 VWAP. And of course, we broke above that convincingly as well, right? So I said, once we break above that, that is definitely a break in market structure. Okay, so it's more reasons to be bullish, if you like, but that this here will be the next level of resistance, which is the 2022 VWAP, the developing VWAP, right? And of course, it has perfect confluence with this low volume node, the area of imbalance between these two ranges, okay, which I've highlighted here with these arches, right? So basically what we've got here is two balance areas. We've got the upper balance area and the lower balance area. You could argue that the whole thing is just one big range. Of course you could, but you know, it's significant because you've got the yearly VWAP there and you've got an area of imbalance right in between, right? So it's like a double distribution type thing. So that was the level that I was looking for resistance, and of course here we are at resistance now. Okay, so, and also like I previously mentioned, once you break this market structure, so we break the highs, then the significant thing would be to, on the pullback, to not break the previous lows, right? Now, you could argue that here on the weekly time frame, the previous lows are way down here, right? Because obviously on the higher time frames, that's when you see these down candles here, the downtrending candles, right? Here you just see up only candles, right? So green candles. I know they're all gray, but I could change that, but I've got like sort of like a brighter gray for the up movements and a darker gray for the down movements. Now, in terms of market structure, what I would like to see is either a bounce here, like I said, at the previous level of resistance, which should now be support, which has confluence with the highest volume node of this balance area here, right about 4,200 points. Okay, so that's basically where the 2021 VWAP close was at, right? So that's around about 4,200 points. However, if we do break below that, right, meaning if we find acceptance inside of this volume cluster here, right, we could do something like this, come here, bounce a little bit to the upside, find resistance again at this low volume area, right, and then continue downwards. Now, importantly, to confirm that this is indeed a bullish market structure, I would like to see these levels here hold, this low volume node, right about between 4,000 and 4,100 points. Okay, note that it has confluence with the value area low of the current year's VWAP. Okay, so what I mean by that is the -1 standard deviation, which is this blue line here. Okay, note how this has perfect confluence. If you follow the crosshairs, you can see that it's got perfect confluence with this low volume area down here, right? So that would be basically a rejection of this balance area here to start with, acceptance back inside of this one, and then a rejection of the lower edge, right, which is this level here. A rejection here would be extremely bullish in my personal opinion. That would mean that even though we were printing this as a high, a low, swing high, swing low, swing high, swing low. Basically, you've got lower highs and lower lows printing. Now here we've broke above a previous high. So this is a higher high, and now what we would like to see in terms of market structure is a higher low, even if it comes all the way down here. And like I said to you guys on the beginning of the week, on Monday, this is basically what I was expecting to see, right? This is what I'm expecting to see going forward, right? So even if we do not bounce at 4,200 points, which would be great, it would be really, really bullish if we bounce there, of course, there is a potential that the S&P will go all the way down below 4,100 points, right? So below this low volume, the high volume edge here, and just test the value area low of the developing year VWAP, right? So this is sitting at round about 4,034 points. Now, if we do that, if you look at this on the daily, right, which would be down here, that means that everybody that went long here would get stopped out. So basically it means taking out these stops here, right? Take the stalker off for a second. So this would be like, you know, it would make sense in my personal opinion. Of course, there's no guarantee that we'll go there, right? We could obviously just bounce here on this low volume area here, which is basically got perfect confluence with that 2021 VWAP, like I was saying, right? We could bounce at previous level of resistance here, we break above it, come back, confirm that this is indeed support, and then we could bounce from there. That's, you know, it's absolutely possible that we do that. So you can see this was previous resistance, we broke above it, and now we would confirm it as support. But the key thing is that we've broken below the current year's VWAP, the 2022, and now we're going to seek buyers, right? So seeking liquidity, in my personal opinion, this would be too easy here. It's possible, but it's too easy here, and I think that we would potentially break out this previous here, and everybody would be screaming saying that's a break in market structure. That's basically null and void now. We made a higher high, but now we're making a lower low. But I think that this low volume area as it's basically the line in the sand, right? The last chance saloon, if you like, for the S&P to bounce. So like I said, two levels of support, and that's basically 4,200 points here and just below 4,100 points here for the S&P. If we break below this, then I think that this was definitely a trap and a deviation, if you like. So a deviation of the highs, and we're going to print new lows. That's basically the line in the sand here, right? And the reason for that is if I put the weekly back on and take these levels off, as you can see here, we've got yet another volume structure here, right? So a big balance area. So if we break below this and we find acceptance below 3,987 points, meaning acceptance back inside of this range here, right? That would mean that when we enter this balance area, if we confirm that this is indeed now resistance, we would most likely travel to the other side of it, okay, which is basically taking out these previous lows. So that's what I'm looking at right now, and this is why I'm saying that this level here is very imperative, and this is basically the line in the sand in terms of bullish market structure, okay? Ideally, like I said, I want to see a bounce here, but the market doesn't really care what I want. And it makes sense that it would bounce here, but I expect a lot of people will be looking at that. So it really depends on what the Federal Reserve is doing and how the market participants trade this on the higher time frame. But I do think that there is potential for a bounce here and for a bounce here. In terms of resistance, of course, the yearly VWAP, which is around about 4,250 points, around about here, right? And if we can break above that, then we're looking at this market structure here, this volume edge here, and the next target would be way up here at around about 4,500 points. Okay, I think we've got plenty of time to see that happening. I think because of the large move to the upside, this large impulse that we've seen to the upside, the market was looking a little bit frothy. It came to the levels that we were looking at on the higher time frame, and I think a correction now is more than welcome and actually a very healthy move, if you ask me. Okay, so that's basically what we're seeing here on the S&P. If I can look at the daily chart here, I'm looking at the quarterly This is the quarterly VWAP here, and you can see that basically once we broke it inside of the previous quarter here, we couldn't even come back and test it. We stayed within the current quarter's value area high, right? So we bounced here, we came to the previous quarter VWAP close here, right? We confirmed that this was pivotal here in terms of support, and you can see that very clearly here. Once we broke above that, we held that as support, and the market came back, retested it, and then we bounced from there, right? So where did we get stopped? Well, we got stopped at the previous quarter value area high, like, you know, so close there, right? And this had perfect confluence, like I said, had perfect confluence here with the yearly VWAP. So I'm drawing a line here on the left hand side, right? I'm going to put a little circle there. It's the previous year VWAP had perfect confluence with the quarterly value area high, the previous quarter value area high, if that makes sense, and if you can see it here, right? So let me just make that a little bit clearer. I'm going to put a line there again. You can see that that's the yearly VWAP here on the quarter, on the top left hand corner, and it had very close confluence here with the, on the top right hand corner, with the value area high of the previous quarter, right? So this was the previous quarter's close, this is the value area low, this is the value area high, the +1 standard deviation, and there we are. So that's basically where we found rejection. So this was higher time frame levels that I gave you well in advance. If you guys want to look back at the videos that I gave you, you can see that I'm not this is not hindsight trading. You guys can see that I gave you those levels well in advance. So now what we're looking at is basically the 4,000 level and 4,200. So let's have a look at this on the daily. 4,200 would be this low volume area here. So basically just above these previous highs, right? So that's basically where the 2021 VWAP is. So this would be an area that of interest for support. However, if we get acceptance back inside of this volume cluster here, right, then we could find support around about 4,100, 4,095 points. Okay, so it's just below that 4,100, which is basically this consolidation here where I was telling you that we might take out all of those stops. And we can see a cascading liquidation all the way up to this 4,000 point, which is where the current quarter's VWAP is. Current quarterly VWAP is round about 4,000 points. It's actually on 3,991 points. Okay, so, you know, we could see support here, but we could also see a deeper move to the downside, and we could find support round about here, just below 4,100 points, or maybe even lower at 4,000 points. But that's basically the line in the sand. Any lower than that, and I think we're going to go and print new lows. Okay, so the most likely case scenario, in my personal opinion, is that we bounce here. If we do not bounce here, then I'm looking at this level down here, around about 4,050 points. Okay, so that's basically it for the S&P. Let's move on to Bitcoin and see how that affected it. So you can see that it was not really a massive move here. This is a very small move here on the S&P. It's not even broken market structure yet. On Bitcoin, you can see that it's most definitely broke the market structure, right? So I'm going to put some weekly levels here so that you guys can make sense of this, right? So we got rejected at the previous weekly high here. This is the weekly close. We couldn't break above this, right? So we came all the way to this weekly level, and I was expecting the market to be ranging somewhere between these two weekly levels, right? So somewhere between 23,000 and 24,300. Of course, this is a very big rejection, right? And if you look at this objectively without the weekly levels, right, we basically are testing a higher time frame level here. We're testing the value area low of the current yearly VWAP, right? This is the VWAP here, the 2022 VWAP. This is sitting around about $31,800. And the value area low is way down here, basically at $23,500. Okay, now, you know, if you look at this objectively, you can see that on the higher time frames, again, when we came down and we had this massive pullback here on Bitcoin, so the apex, if you like, or the furthest down candle that we saw was basically a bounce on the 2020. This is a 2020 VWAP close, this is the value area high, this is the value area low, and this is basically the 2020 value area high. That's basically where we bounced here, right? So now we go and test 2022 value area low, and of course the market went very close to finding acceptance there, but we didn't. It did look bullish for a while because we did break above this resistance. This was resistance, and we broke above it, and we came down below to retest that support, but of course it failed, and we could not break back above it inside. So we go and seek, naturally we go and seek new balance areas, right? So you can see here that we got rejected of a pretty big higher time frame level here, the value area low of the yearly VWAP. On the quarterly, which is the daily chart here, this is the quarterly VWAP. You can see that, you know, we basically broke inside the previous quarter here, right? This is the previous quarter value area, right, with the VWAP closing around about there, right? So we broke above this. This is basically, we bounced on the current quarterly VWAP, right? And then we were trying to find acceptance back inside the previous quarter, and we did, right? This confirmed it here as support. Now, once we got back inside, we came back, we retested this as support, and it kept on going higher. So this was the reason why most people were bullish, including me, right? But of course, we have a higher time frame level, which is basically the yearly VWAP that we got rejected from. So once we see that happening, and also in confluence with what's happening with the S&P, like with the S&P reaching a very key level of the year, of the current yearly VWAP here, right? So this being a key level here, right? We knew that we would do a pullback. So the question would be, can we hold this previous quarter value area low? And of course we didn't. We didn't even hold the current quarter VWAP here. We went straight down. So the current quarter value area low is sitting at around about $20,800. Okay, so basically we are now below this low volume node here at 22,500, and I want you to pay attention to that level, right? 22,500 has very close confluence with the previous quarter value area low here and the quarterly VWAP, right? So 22,500. So basically you saw now that we have broken market structure where we were doing previous higher highs and higher lows. This was the previous lows here. We've just broken below that, so we've broken market structure. So naturally when we go back up, if we do go back up to retest, the retest will be most likely finding resistance at this previous level of support, right? Which again has perfect confluence with that 22,500, 22,600 level. Okay, so that's basically a break in market structure on Bitcoin, and Bitcoin on the higher time frames does look wrecked. Okay, so we want to see if, first of all, when we're going to go and see that impulse back to the upside to cover this largely inefficient move. Okay, so we'll see when we get that retrace back, but when we do get the retrace back, be under no illusion that this level here should act as very strong resistance. Okay, so again, like I was saying, right about 22,500, 22,600 down. Okay, moving down into the time frames, we're looking at the 4-hour time frame here, right? And this is the monthly VWAP, right? So let's just make this a little bit closer, a little bit more zoomed in like this. So you can see that this here was the month of June's VWAP close, right? It had been acting as resistance for quite some time. We broke above it, broke below it, and then we stayed below it here for quite some time here, right? And it became kind of almost irrelevant because it had been run through so many times, right? As before, it was actually acting very good as resistance and support. It became kind of a almost irrelevant level. However, when we broke down from these highs here, we broke below the monthly VWAP, that acted as resistance again, and we couldn't even get to the monthly VWAP. So that was the first sign that we were showing weakness here on Bitcoin, right? So of course we were expecting this level here If you remember from last week when I was, from the beginning of this week, when I was looking at levels that we would be looking to trade, I said this could be potentially the next level of support, right? Because we had a nice little balance area here. And I even said that, you know, round about $23,000 is the level that I want to see bounce. That has perfect confluence with the value area low of the current month, which would be here, right? And also the previous month, so the month of July value area high, which was this here, right? Which is very close to the June VWAP close as well. So I was expecting this level to hold as support, but I did say to you guys, and if you don't believe me, go and look back, that if we do break below that, the next level of support would be the July VWAP close, and that's exactly where we're at right now. Okay, so basically we've targeted that level now. As we know, we've broken market structure, right? So this was the previous lows, and we've broken that. But you could also argue, and I remember making this point on Monday, that all of these guys, this is compression, right? And in terms of swing highs and swing lows of higher highs and higher lows that we've been doing, this is the previous low, and we've not broken that yet. Okay, so we made a swing high, a swing low, so this is a higher low than this one, right? Then we made a higher high and a higher low, a higher high again and a higher low, and here we made a higher high, and this low was kind of just compression. There was no swing there. There was no like a definitive kind of pullback as such. Okay, so this is just pure compression, right? And of course I said it would be a shame if we would come down and take out all of these stops, right? And of course, which is the same scenario that I'm seeing on the S&P around about 4,100 points. But and of course that's exactly what we do. We've just taken out all of those stops there, right? So these guys, basically the later longers, the people that went long at the top, if you like, are now basically either covering or puking up their positions. And of course that's why we see this cascading liquidation down, right? This is why we see an extensive and a big impulse to the downside, because below all of this here, there's plenty of liquidity in the form of stops, right? So basically all these short stops, all these sell stops are basically all the guys that were long in this range here would have had their stops in a very obvious place, which would be here. And of course, if you're long, your stops are going to be market sells. So this exacerbates the move to the downside. And that's basically what we've seen here. So we've seen a nice big flush to the downside with the previous month VWAP acting as support momentarily. But we could see this going a little bit further down, and I'll explain why. Right? We don't want to break this here. We don't want to break this low here, and this is sitting at around about $20,800. Okay, we don't want to see that. If we see that, there's definitely potential to be going much lower, right? But what I think that is going to happen now is that now we bracket, right? Now we do a little bit of a balance here. We do a little bit of a range here. So this is a large liquid move, right? Large liquid move to the downside. We see from previous price action that these large liquid moves always get retraced, or the majority of the time they get retraced, right? We see a large liquid move here, it gets retraced. We see a large liquid move here, it gets retraced much lower, right? Large liquid move gets retraced, right? You can argue that these here are big impulses and larger liquid moves. Of course, it gets retraced, but yet again gets retraced with yet another larger liquid move, right? And this larger liquid move, this inefficiency, if you like, had not been tested. Well, it got tested now, okay? And the previous level of consolidation was round about here. So I've been calling for that $21,500 level for quite some time. If you look at last week's technical analysis update, I did say that this is becoming a little bit of a concern here because, again, it's an inefficiency and it hadn't been filled, right? So here we are, we filled it now, okay? So now we've got the same here. We've got a large inefficient move to the downside that hasn't been filled yet. So yes, I do expect the price to be going up, even if we are to go much further down, right? Even if we do break market structure and this was just a trap, I do expect this to get retraced eventually. However, I do expect this level here to act as strong resistance. And again, 23,200, 23,500. But we've also got a large low volume node here at 22,500. So that's the level that I was asking you guys to pay attention to. So if we have a closer look at this, right, and I apologize for the noise, I think the guys are coming to change the bins or whatever, I don't know if you can hear it or not, but basically what I'm saying here is that even if we do retrace this to the upside here, okay, we might not retrace the whole thing, we might not go to the value area high of this previous month here, right? We could most definitely do that and go to $23,000, but I do think that with this low volume node here at 22,500, that's potentially as far as we'll go, and this will be resistance until proven otherwise. Okay, so has perfect confluence with this previous level of support here, so you know this would be strong resistance going forward, right? So am I rushing to get in a trade now? Are we thinking, okay, this is the dip, I'm going to buy the dip? No, I don't want to do this because we could potentially flush a little bit lower, all the way down to 20,000, right? So I don't want to be rushing this. There's going to be loads of people buying the dip here and positioning themselves long, and this could potentially do something like this and then go lower, right? And I don't want to be caught out in that. What I'd like to see is this forming a range here, right? So I don't know how high it is. Maybe the range will be as high as $22,500, right? And then the lows could be here, right? And we'd be ranging here. So if that's the case, I will be a seller at these levels and I will be a buyer at these levels, right? I want to see the range basically sweep the lows and then acceptance back up in order for me to be long, or sweep the highs and then fall back inside the range in order for me to go short. So I hope this kind of makes sense to you, right? So basically inside of this cluster here between 22,500 and 21,500. Of course, we might not do that. We might be going lower. So I want to see really on the lower time frames and on the order flow, on the market profile as well, where these levels are, which ones are the most likely levels to be hit. It does look here on Coinbase that we've broken below the monthly VWAP, the previous month VWAP. Okay, so that's July, and it does look like it wants to reach lower. And if that's the case, then so be it. Like I said, this is a line in the sand here. This is basically a line that we don't want to cross. This is a previous swing low, and if we do print lower than 20,700, right, then we could potentially see Bitcoin reaching for the previous lows. Okay, so this is basically the typical break-in market structure if we do go below this. All right, so basically going below this here, right, means that we're almost certainly would find some resistance here at 22,500, that level that I was talking about, and this would be a great entry for a short, and basically we'd be trapped inside of this volume cluster here, and that's basically what I'm looking at in terms of volume structures here. So you can see here in terms of balance, you can see that we've broken out of this balance area here, right? And we're now well inside of this balance structure here, right? So will we bounce on this high volume node here and go back up again and start ranging here and filling this gap here? Or will we go below, find acceptance and we go below? If we do go below, then I think we're looking at around about 19,500 as the next level of support here, which is this low volume node here, because basically this is a balance area here, and once we break inside, let me just do this again, right? So in terms of volume profile, we're basically seeing a bounce on this high volume node here, which is basically like the point of control, if you like, at this profile, right? So as we are seeing a bounce there, what we want to see is, are we going to go back up and then range in between the point of control and fill that gap there, or do we go back up, find resistance, and then continue much lower? That's what we want to see, right? In terms of market structure here, when we see acceptance inside of a value area, right, the only thing that can disrupt us going to both sides of the balance is the point of control, which is where we are right now. Right, so you can imagine that this is basically divided into two. This is the center point, which is basically where we're finding ourselves right now. Now, if this here is resistance at this top here, will we find acceptance back inside of this range? And if we do, then I'm almost certain that we go and test $19,600, okay, at least. Perhaps even take out the previous lows, but that's too early to be talking about that. And then so we would be doing something like this, and then going all the way to this level here, right? So this is why I'm not in a rush to trade. However, if we find ourselves up here, and it does get rejected, but we start hovering at resistance, then this was just a flush down, and I think that we will very likely come back to this balance area up here. Okay, so that's basically that 22,500 is a key level now. Okay, and we want to see basically, do we get stopped here and find acceptance inside of this volume cluster, or do we get stopped here, hover at resistance for a bit, and then break above it and confirm that this is indeed support, and we travel between these two levels here. Okay, so basically we've got two volume structures here now, and this is basically where, in a battle to see where are we going to find acceptance. Do we find acceptance below here, or do we find acceptance above? Of course, it depends on the S&P. The S&P closely correlated with, the Bitcoin is closely correlated with the S&P, and if the S&P continues to pull down to 4,100 points or whatever, then it is very likely that we come and see these levels down here. But I haven't got a crystal ball. We can't look into the future. I'm just giving you the levels that I think that are tradable for the foreseeable future, right? So I could put a little rectangle here. This is the previous balance area here. And this is the balance area that we find ourselves in. And I'm going to make that as blue for now, right? And this is basically where we are right now, right? So again, just to recap on what I was saying, we will most likely go to this level here, right? This is going to be resistance until proven otherwise. It's a previous level of support, so it's a high probability trade that that's going to be resistance. The important thing is to see how strong the rejection is. If it's a strong rejection, we're very close to, we're almost certain that we're going to get back to that point of control, and then here we'll have to see what happens. Are we going to find a range here, or are we going to break down and go to the downside and confirm that this is indeed the new balance area and the range that we'll be trading at between 19,500 and 22,500? You know, so that's basically what I'm saying for the foreseeable future, and basically what you should be looking at in terms of the weekend. Don't be rushing into trades, because like I said, we could see a flush down to the downside before we see anything else, right? So that's basically where we're at right now. If we look at the lower time frames, I'm going to put it here on the 1 hour chart, and this is basically the weekly view app, and we're basically, I know I keep saying basically, I'll stop that. So we've tested this value area low here of this weekly level. Okay, so this is basically the last week of July, okay, where the VWAP close was sitting around about $22,600. You can see that this is a pivotal level. We've bounced here as support, we swept the lows here, we came back, we confirmed that this is support, and then we rallied. We came back. Where did we bounce? Exactly on this line here, right? $22,500, $22,600, right? And then we rallied, right? So then we continued doing the price action that we've seen for the last sort of couple of weeks. Here we fell out of balance here, right? We fell out of this previous week balance, and once we fell out of that, you can see that we could not get back above the current week or the previous week's value area low, and of course that was the signal for a short. Okay, so we fell out of balance. Where did we see this little cluster of movement? Do you see this little cluster here where basically we kind of like, we had a little bit of consolidation there for a minute, right? Well, we saw that consolidation right on the edge, on the lower edge of this balance area, right? So you can see that there. I'll put a little line across. Let me just see that there, right? So that's basically where we were consolidating. Let me put this on the 30-minute chart. We consolidated here for a minute before this nice big flush to the downside, and that had perfect confluence with the edge of this high volume cluster. So we fell out of a balance area now. Okay, so we're in an imbalance, if you like, and we found ourselves in a new balance area, which is this one here that I was highlighting to you guys on the 4 hour, right? So, but what I wanted to highlight is that this little consolidation that we had here, falling out of this high volume cluster, had basically perfect confluence with the last week of July VWAP close. Okay, you can see that there. So it acted as support. Here we swept the lows, but then it acted as support again. It acted as support, acted a little bit as support, and we've lost it. So what do you expect to happen when the price goes back up there? It's going to be resistance, of course, right? So this is now the pivot, 22,000. You could even argue that it's around about 22,600, 22,500, 22,600. And that would mean that we would retrace most of this largely illiquid, inefficient move, right? So again, I'm going to delete all of these brush marks. And you can see here that we've got a little bit of, there's retests, right? So this is kind of like consolidation there. So there is kind of like a little bit of movement there. There's a little bit of an imbalance here, but nothing significant at 23K. For me, this is the significant one. Large illiquid move all the way up to $22,700. And that's basically the next level of resistance, should we go up first, okay? So, you know, we're going to be forming a range here now, and there's no rush to enter this market, right? We're going to be forming a range. The question really is, are we going to form a range from where we are now, or are we going to go lower? So let's have a look at the market profile and the order flow in order to see if we find any clues regarding that. So we move on to Exocharts, and I'll start here with the daily volume profile. And you can see on the daily volume profile, we had this. And this is yet another thing that I'd highlighted to you guys. We had this naked point of control here sitting at around about $21,400, $21,360 actually, to be precise. It was sticking out like a sore thumb. I'd explained to you guys before, and again, if you don't believe me, go and look back at the videos so that you know that I'm not sort of bullshitting and just hindsight trading. I said to you guys that this stuck out like a sore thumb after a large liquid move here, right? This is a large liquid move that usually tends to get retraced. Of course, that's what happens. Where do we stop? Exactly at that point of control. Now, we do have another naked point of control way down at 19,600, right? So if we look at this objectively, 19,600, and I look at this on the 4-hour chart, and if you look at the value area low, right, so there's also this one here, right? If we look at these lows here as potentially the level where we would look for buys here, 19,600, should this one fail, 19,600 is where this low volume node is, right? So again, if we're looking at this as a volume structure and we go all the way back down to confirm both sides as a balance, right? Where's the lower balance of that? 19,500, 19,600. And when we look at that, this level here sticks out like a sore thumb, right? The naked point of control at $19,700. Okay, so you know, so we can start painting a picture there. So if we are to go down from here, if we don't go up to 22,500 first, right, then I think that the level that you should be looking at is round about here, $19,700. Okay, and then we'll have to wait and see what happens there. And this is not the end of the world. It just means that yes, we've broken market structure and we're just range bound. This is basically a range and we're just range bound. That's all it is, right? So in terms of volume structure, you can see here that 22,500 level, which I'm going to put a little rectangle here, 22,500 right about here, is just the edge of this balance structure here, right? So this is the lower edge, and 22,500 is significant even here. And you can see here on the volume where the gap is, right? So where this gap is, where the single prints are, basically it's round about somewhere between 22,560 and $22,200. Okay, so that's significant, and that's basically why I expect the next level of resistance. This should be support, but if it doesn't hold as support, then I'm looking at this level here, around about 19,700 as the next level of support. Okay, so let me just delete that, move on to the market profile. So that's the daily volume profile. In terms of the market profile, You'll see that I've changed things a little bit over just to make it a little bit clearer. And you can see that basically we had a session VWAP here. It was an anchored VWAP actually. Let's explain all the clusters. This was an anchored VWAP from this swing high here, right? And you can see that this had been acting as resistance the whole time, right? And until we actually break that, there's no chance that we're going to get back into this previous range again, right? So this was an indication that basically we were finding weakness here, right? If I put the anchored VWAP, if I could get this anchored VWAP to move to this previous swing high here, you can see that it'd been acting as resistance. So this is basically no excess on that. So there's plenty of excess on that, right? So there's plenty of a selling tail there. It'd been acting as resistance ever since. We did sweep higher here, so I moved the anchored VWAP to this high, and then that had been acting as resistance, and here we are now, right? So that anchored VWAP is sitting at around about $22,700 right now, and you can see that the single prints here on the market profile are basically sitting between 22,140 and 22,669. So basically these single prints have perfect confluence. Show the CPR here in terms of volume. I'm going to take this, not expanding the structure here, the clusters. And you can see that the single prints have perfect confluence with that low volume area, or like I said, the edge of this high volume cluster. So basically I'm just showing you the same thing in different charts, right? So that you guys don't get confused and start making a little bit of sense out of this. So you can see that this is basically a range here. We've got another range above that we couldn't hold, right? And now we find ourselves seeing if we can find acceptance inside of that one or not, right? So far it does look like we've taken this naked point of control here. Let me just change that a little bit. I'm going to put that as a sort of like just as a shadow, right? You can see that we hit that naked point of control almost to the dollar, right? We've extended a little bit here with the cascading liquidations, but now it's basically the question is, are we getting acceptance back inside of this, right? Which, like I said to you guys, we've got a balance area here, very much the same thing. I'm going to repeat myself yet again, but we've got a balance area here with a point of control here, right? So are we going to find acceptance below here? And if we're going to find acceptance below, meaning that we find resistance here and we don't even get to these levels up there, right? And if we start going lower, then I expect 20,500 and 19,600 to be the next level, okay, where this naked point of control is. That naked point of control that I've been talking about for quite some time now. Okay, so let me just take all of these rectangles off for a second. So here we are. Basically, we have a larger liquid candle to the downside. We've got some single prints sitting at around about 22,500, which is that level of resistance. In terms of support now, we should find support here because we are on the edge of a high volume cluster. If we do not find support here, then you can bet that we're pretty much very likely to go at least to $19,700. Okay, but I do expect this $22,400, $22,500 to be the next level. Okay, so basically we would be consolidating here for a while, forming a bracket, right? Forming this sort of balance area here, right? And do something like a bit of ranging here. So do something like this, forming a balance here where the price will move this way, and then do we get all the way up there? If we get all the way up there, then I'm going to be short here, unless proven otherwise, just because my invalidation is very, very close. Right here, I'm wrong. So in terms of risk reward, this is a good trade because what I'll be betting on is reversal to the mean, right, which is going back here. So in terms of risk reward, I've only got very little risk to potential a big reward, right? So here I'll be short, and I'll be targeting these lows down here again, right? So if we sweep these lows here, there's a naked session VWAP and also a value area low that has been untapped. That's sitting here. This is the nuance of the market profile, right? We've got $21,000 here as potential support, and that's because there's a session VWAP here, right? And there's also a naked value area low, right? Just like this one here, around about $20,800. So 21,000 could potentially be support here, right? So if we come all the way down here, if we start bracketing, like I said, right, where we basically form a little range here like this, at these highs I'll be short, but also at these lows here I'll be long, looking very closely at this bracket here. Okay, I'll be long, but if we come all the way up here and then start rolling over, then I'm going to close my long, take profit here and enter a short, because I think that we're going down to that level there. However, if I'm long here and this accepts back inside of this range, then it's almost guaranteed that it's going to the other side of the range. So again, my long position here is a good risk to reward, right? I know where I'm wrong, right? And I'll be targeting first the range high of this range here, and potentially even that $22,500 level if we haven't reached it already. Okay, so that's basically my play right now. I'm not in a rush to enter a trade. I'll be wanting to see a little bracket forming here. I want to see a nice little range forming here and just seeing where in that range there's a trade. For me, longs are way down here, shorts are way up here. And that's basically just outside of the range, deviations of the range, okay? So that's basically what we're seeing here on Bitcoin. And like I said, you've got the higher time frame kind of set up levels, with this level here, 22,500 being resistance. We've got this as potential support at around about 21K. And potentially if that fails, then we're looking at 19,600 as the next level of support. And that's basically how we're playing this, okay? So not in a rush to enter a trade. I know that some of you will probably be itching to enter a trade because this is definitely a nice little pullback, but I wouldn't be rushing into anything because of course there's uncertainty in the market, especially with the S&P pulling back, right? So it's more likely that we see further downside if the S&P comes down. Okay, because as we've seen, there's more correlation to the downside on Bitcoin with the S&P than there is to the upside. So that's it, I think, for Bitcoin. I think I can move on to Ethereum. If there's any questions, please ask in the group. I'm more than happy to answer those questions on the YouTube chat. But for now, I'll move on to Ethereum versus USD. So Ethereum USD, we'll look again at the weekly chart. And you can see that basically we couldn't spend the whole week. We didn't close a week inside of the 2021 value area low, which was this level here. We did break above it. It did look very bullish. This was previous resistance, of course, right? As we saw here, it's previous resistance. Previous resistance. Then we broke and we found acceptance inside the value area low of 2022. And we kind of rallied, and now we're kind of like we've fallen out of the 2021, but we're seeing if we can find acceptance inside of the 2022 value area low. Now, of course, you know full well, if you've been here long enough, you know full well that when Bitcoin dumps, Ethereum dumps, regardless of any merge news or anything like that. So usually, or 99% of the time, that's usually how it works. There's a big break on Bitcoin in terms of market structure, not so much on Ethereum, right? So this is the previous low. We haven't broken that previous low yet. So we could definitely bounce here around about $1,650. As you can see, that's very close to where we are right now. Okay, we're at 1694. And you can see here on the 3-day chart, right? I'll put it back on the weekly actually, just to make a little bit more sense out of it. You can see that we're very close to this low volume node here. There's also more importantly, a low volume node around about $1,500, $1,400. Okay, so that's an important one. That's a key level there. Now, if you guys know, and you've been here long enough, so you probably know this, what I usually do is I put some rectangles here just to highlight the balance areas. And again, this is nothing more than highlighting where these volume structures are, right? These volume areas. I do apologize, I'm drawing with a mouse, so it doesn't look very good. But so you can see that basically we are still within the range that I've been talking about, which is somewhere between $2,000 and $1,500, right? With this high volume node here at $1,800 being very strong resistance for quite some time. If you look at the daily, you can see that $1,800 was a tough nut to crack, right? Which was this level here, right? We'd been resistance, came back with resistance, and we you know, it took at least 3 attempts for us to break above it. Now we broke above that $1,800. We found resistance here around about $2,000, and now we've broken below back into this range again, right? So let's have a look at this objectively in terms of higher time frames, right? In terms of the daily and the weekly chart here, if I put this on the weekly again, you can see that we're basically inside of this purple range here, which is basically this high volume cluster here, right? So again, resistance is at this low volume node at $2,000, and support is just below $1,500. Okay, so but somewhere between $1,500 and $2,000. Okay, and this is the range that you should be trading in. Right? Apologize for the noise. It's typical. Yeah, the guys come and do the recycling right when I'm on stream, but if you can ignore that, I hope you guys can hear me okay. So this is the higher time frame levels here. $1,500 as support, $2,000 as resistance on the higher time frame, right? If we look at the other chart, let's have a look at the daily chart with a quarterly VWAP. You can see that we're very close to breaking this market structure. This is the previous lows. We're very close to that now, okay? But you can see also that the previous quarter value area low, which is this level here, is sitting at around about $1,400. So yet again, more confluence, right? We do have the quarterly VWAP there in yellow at $1,500, but like I said, the value area low is basically what had been acting as support. It's got strong confluence here with a low volume area, so that's the area that I'm interested, around about $1,400, this level here, okay? So that's more confluence to that level of support. And then on Ethereum last week, in fact, it might have been on Monday, when I did put, let me just put the balance areas back on here. Right, let's go back to this 4-hour chart. Right, so I highlighted this to you. I said $2,000 here as resistance, and we hit it almost to the dollar, right? And I did say that this monthly VWAP should act as support. Well, we broke straight through it, and we came down to the value area low of the current month. This is the value area high, this is the value area low here. So let me just delete all of these brush marks, right? And here we are, very close to that value area low of the monthly, and that's sitting at around about $1,665. Okay, you can see that there's also a low volume node there, right, around about 1,640. Now, this here was a previous level of support that acted as resistance on the way up, right? So this was resistance, resistance, and here we deviated above, and then we broke above it, but we didn't come from as support, and now we've come, and yet we are below it again, right? We're below those brush marks again. So for me, this one has no significance other than this level here, right? So again, on the higher time frames, $1,500 is more or less what we're looking at in terms of support, $2,000 as resistance. But now I'm looking at these levels here, around about $1,600, right? This area inside of here as a potential support, because as you can see, it's a low volume node, right? So again, the same situation happens. If we form a bracket here, right? If we form a bracket here and we start rotating inside of this cluster here, right? We'll be doing something like this, with $1,800 as the next level of resistance and $1,600 as the next level of support, right? That will be the lower time frame range that we want to be trading on Ethereum, right? So this monthly VWAP, 1796, right, $1,800, something like that, will be the next level of resistance. That's like our $22,500 on Bitcoin, right? So that will be resistance. Levels of support, we've got this area here. Okay, so it's not just one particular level, it's an area, a range, if you like, right, around about $1,640. Okay, so If we fail that, of course, that means that we get acceptance back inside of this cluster here. And then, of course, what I'll be looking at is, again, that $1,440 level as the next level of support. So essentially, if I was to take this out, let me just take these brush marks off here and take the balance area off. We look here at the 4-hour chart on Ethereum. You can see that we're looking at this level here as potential support, $1,600, but failing that, we'll be looking at this one here, $1,400 here. Okay, so if I was to put some rectangles here so that you guys make sense, like balance areas if you like, we're looking at a range here, right, and another range here, like that. Does that make sense? I hope it kind of makes sense, right? So this is basically, as you can see here, I'm looking at one volume structure here and another volume distribution there, right? So do we range between these two levels here, or do we find acceptance below and then we'll be trading between these two ranges here? So on the higher time frames, you can see that this is a much larger distribution, but on the shorter time frames, you can see that there's plenty of room for wiggle trades here, right? So we've got two distributions, right? So will we range inside of this one, or will we range inside of that one? Okay, if we find acceptance below, then you know that 1640 is going to be strong resistance, and we're very likely to go all the way down to $1,400. However, if we come all the way down here and find that this is support, then it's very likely that we range inside of this one at the top here. Okay, so that's basically what I've got here for Ethereum. I hope this kind of makes sense in terms of like volume structures and how I find these ranges in advance. And it's basically just like auction market theory, and just basically looking at how acceptance and rejection, and basically, you know, 80% of the time most of these assets want to be ranging, so it's basically finding where all these volume structures are in order to predict where they're going to be ranging in. Okay, so that's basically what I'm looking at. So you've got resistance level, support level, support level. If we break below this support level, then this becomes resistance, and then it will be ranging between here. So we've got two ranges. All right, so I hope this kind of makes it clear for you guys, and I hope that you kind of can follow and make profitable trades out of that assessment, right? So this would be key, right? This would be key, $1,600 and $1,400. If we break below $1,400, right, and this is just like the worst case scenario, right? So let's say for a minute, put this on a 3-day chart here. Let's say for a minute that we break below this level here, around about $1,400. Then we've got another balance area here, and that will be somewhere between $1,400 as being resistance and $1,000, $900 as being support. Now, I don't want to go over that because I think it's too far away. I don't think that's sensible to be looking at that just on this Friday. I think next week we'll have better answers on that. But for now, I think you should just focus on this range here, right? So on the higher time frames, you can see that this is a higher volume cluster here, somewhere between $1,500 and $2,000. I've showed you on the lower time frames how you can divide that into two and then make it into a double distribution, but that's essentially it. If, however, we break below $1,400, I'll do another assessment, but we'll be essentially trading between $1,400 and $900, and that's basically it for Ethereum. Okay, so on the lower time frames, let me just see if I can make any sense here on the 1 hour chart. Yeah. So it's basically the same thing that I was telling, sorry about that, the same thing that I was telling you guys on the 4 hour chart, is that we've got a balance here and we've got a balance here. That's basically it, right? So we want to see this here as support, and we want to see this level here acting as support as well, which, you know, if we look at it just with the VWAPs, you can see that we've got very close to this low volume node here at 1650. We've got a previous level that acted as support here, which is basically the first week of August of VWAP close. Okay, but then we've got these levels down here and we've got these levels down here as well, right? So we'll have to look at that. Just stick with what I just said before. I think it makes a lot more sense of what I explained here on the 4-hour chart to look at the ranges rather than looking at the 1-hour chart. That's more for scalping, and that's basically where I trade. But it's better to keep an eye in terms of contextual levels, where we are in terms of context, right? So that's basically what we're looking at. We're looking at a range here and a range here, with this being a higher time frame level that wants to hold as support, and this being the higher time frame level that is acting as resistance. Okay, so I hope that kind of makes sense. Let's look at Exocharts and see if we can find any clues as to where we might be bouncing next. So we did leave some poor highs here. We've left plenty of anomalies up above, right? So we've got no excess there, no excess there, and no excess there, right? So this one goes all the way up to 1960. But let's forget that for a minute, because sometimes we leave those anomalies behind, right? Just like we left all of these poor lows behind, right? But we filled out these single prints now. These single prints are filled. We've got another set of single prints way down here, around about somewhere between $1,600 and $1,645. We've also got some more single prints round about here, $1,520. And we've got some naked points of control way down here at $1,400 and $1,450. So the narrative is that basically we filled out this largely inefficient move. If we cannot bounce here, if we go lower, then we want to be seeing these single prints here. Let me just do it like this. It's a little bit easier. We want to be seeing this acting as support so that we can range somewhere between this level here and this level here. Right? Because now we've got some single prints here as well, printed today, right? So we could potentially be bracketing and doing a little sort of range here like that. However, if we do break below this, then you know that the next levels, like I said to you guys on the 4-hour, also have some naked points of control here around about $1,400. Okay, so don't expect it to come all the way to $1,500 and then you'll be like, right, that's it, that's the bottom, because we've got very close targets nearby. Okay, so just keep that in mind, especially with this one here around about $1,411. It's got a naked value area low there as well on the market profile, as you can see here, right? So that's basically what we can see here on the market profile. In terms of the volume profile, it'll be very much the same thing. We've got a naked point of control here at $1,578. That's interesting because that's not showing on the market profile on Ethereum. It's perhaps because we've got a different tick size here. Let me just change that to 50, or perhaps even to 40. Okay, so anyway, there's different tick size gives you different sort of different values. But anyway, looking at the volume profile, we do have one here around about 1578, got $1,600, and we've got another one naked point of control at around about $1,460. Okay, so again, important levels if we do come indeed to the downside. Okay, there is a naked point of control that we've left below, above, I mean, at $2,000. So again, we got some poor lows above. We saw that in market structure here on the market profile. So yeah, there's no naked point of control there. This is at 50. So let me just put this one here at 50 as well. Very interesting. It's because I've got the other one as time-based market profile, and this is a volume profile. So anyway, we've got some naked point of control here around about $1,421, and that's sticking out like a sore thumb. And you can see how accurate these are to get taken. Okay, this one didn't get taken up above, but you can see that on the way up, most of these naked points of control get taken out, right? So just keep that in mind, right? Do we get accepted back inside of this volume cluster, this lower distribution, right? Which means that we'll go down there, or do we just get accepted above here and we start bracketing sideways here? That's the real question. And like I said, just stick to what I said here on the 4-hour chart, because that kind of makes a little bit more sense to you guys, I suppose. Okay, so those are just nuances that you see on Exocharts in terms of naked points of control, and also on the footprint you can sort of like spot where absorption is, and you can see where the market's being absorbed, or the shorts and the longs are getting overextended, etc. And you can see exactly the market orders here on footprint. But I would recommend that you guys, if you're not familiar with the footprints and order flow, that you perhaps just stick to the volume profile on the candlestick charts, because it very much does the same thing without too much detail. Okay, so that's Ethereum versus USD. I've given you some higher time frame levels with support and resistance, right? So 2000 and 1500. And in terms of shorter time frames, we've got the monthly VWAP at around about $1,800 as resistance, 1,650 as support. If we break down below that, then we're looking at 1,500, 1,400 as the next level of support, and 1,650 would be now resistance. Okay, so that's basically how we're looking at this, and I hope this kind of makes sense to you guys and it helps you stay on the right side of the trades. So moving on, we move on to Ethereum versus BTC. Now here on the weekly, this is a 3-day chart, so I'll put this on the weekly. You can see that basically we've been let me just take all these brush marks off, right? We've been rejected on the second standard deviation of the VWAP, right? So if I just take the VWAP off for a second, you guys know that I've put some support resistance levels there. You can see that that resistance level there at 81,000 sats was basically where this order block was that was going to act as resistance. If I put the VWAP back on, you know that this was the where is it? The second standard deviation here of the VWAP as well. Okay, so there's that as terms of resistance. There's an order block there, so this is going to be resistance, and I told you this, guys, like weeks ago. If you don't believe me, go and look back. Now in terms of levels of support, then of course, let me just get back to the VWAP here and just put the first standard deviation is this one here, right? So this is the next level of support, and that's why I had a little arrow like this as saying that this would be the next range. Okay, so of course Bitcoin is still being outperformed by Ethereum. Ethereum is looking very, very strong compared to Bitcoin, as you can see here by this parabolic move to the upside compared to Bitcoin. So this is the next range that I expect to be holding a support basically here, the first standard deviation, or the value area high, if you like, the 2022 VWAP. You can see that it's also got perfect confluence with this high volume cluster. Now, if we do break below this level, which I don't think we will, but if we do, right, then this here will be a kind of a very important level. And you can see that basically, let's take this off, you've got the current year's VWAP, which is this blue line here, right? We've got the 2021, this is the 2021 VWAP close, this is the value area high. We've got the value area high of 2021 sitting there as well. Additionally, we've got this trend line, right, which is basically there, it's been there since 21st of June, 24th of June 2021, right? And then it's been acting as support here lots of times. We broke below it, it acted as resistance, and then we came above it and confirmed that this is support again, right? So the trend line is still very much valid in my personal opinion, okay, even though we broke below it and broke above it again. It's supported by the yearly VWAP, and in my personal opinion, this is a very strong level in terms of support. Note as well that the highest volume node, which is the point of control of this range, right, of this volume cluster, sits very close to that level as well, right? So let's break that down into numbers. And I'm looking basically at 81,000 sats as resistance right now, and 75,000 sats as support. That's the first range, right? Should we break below 74,000 sats, then we're looking at 70,000 sats as the next level of support, okay? And I don't think we're going to go much below that. Lo and behold, if it does break below that, then we're looking at this one here, around about 65,000 sats, 64,000 sats as the next level of support. But I do think that this high volume cluster here is basically going to act as support, and if the higher edge of this balance doesn't hold as support and we get accepted below, then I think the point of control, which is run about this area here, is supported by the yearly VWAP, the trend line, and the value area high of 2021, should act as very strong support, because we've got 3 confluent levels looking at this. Okay, so this is an important level of support. Okay, break below that one, and I think this one here will be the next one. But for now, this is the range that you want to be trading in. Okay, so I hope this kind of makes sense as well for Ethereum versus BTC. Now I'm going to move on to the FODL trading pairs. This is basically DeFi coins. I'll be looking at DeFi coins that are tradable on FODL. And because Ethereum is still outperforming Bitcoin, I'll be looking at the pairs of these altcoins versus USD and versus Ethereum instead, because there's no point of charting this versus Bitcoin if Ethereum is stronger, right? So you want to chart these altcoins against the strongest asset, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. But please bear in mind that it doesn't matter what technical analysis I do on any of these coins. When Bitcoin is on a downtrend, they will all get pulled back exponentially. Okay, so Bitcoin comes down 7%, some of these coins will be down 15%. Bitcoin comes down, goes up 5%, some of these coins will pump 15%. So just bear that in mind, okay, that the TA could be a little bit skewed on these altcoins. But anyway, let's start with FODL versus USDT, and I'm going to start here, FODL versus Tether on the daily chart. Right, I'm going to take some of these brush marks off. So again, FODL is kind of like the selling momentum has paused, right? Has stopped. And we've been in an accumulation cylinder for quite some time. Now, if I put the volume, I've got no volume there. Let's see if we can find any clues. No, there's not much. There's a little bit of buying going on. As you can see here, there's some buying candles, but there's descending volume there, and the significant volume that we see is sells. Okay, so this is on OkEx, right? But either way, the important thing here to note is the fact that the selling momentum is eased off, right? And we are kind of trading sideways, and we've even tested this level of resistance here without testing the previous level of support. So for now, I think we continue stuck between these two levels here, around about 2 cents and 1.5 cents, right? So I think this is the range that we'll be trading for now. Okay, if we break above 2 cents, this is the next level of resistance. If we break below 1.5 cents, then we're looking at 1 cent as the next level of support. Please do note that if this rallies above 2 cents, it'll be very quick to travel all the way to 6 cents, because this is a large illiquid move. And I know I've highlighted this time and time again, but if you guys are looking at risk reward, then you should be definitely looking at that as a potential reward. So taking a short here is perhaps not the best option, right? Because if this fires up, it can go very quickly against you, right? However, if it comes all the way down here, a long position is favorable because we're trading sideways here. This is a deviation to the lows. If it accepts back above, that's your long position, and we'll be targeting this level of resistance and potentially this one. And if it goes all the way up to here, then you just become rich. All right, so in terms of risk reward, there's definitely more reward than there is risk at the moment for FODL, if we're looking at this price action here, right? So that's all I'm going to say about that. So moving on to FODL versus USDC. So this is on sushiswap. I know I illustrated this already here. You can see that on sushiswap there's the same thing happening here with higher highs and higher lows, although we did see a pullback here, right? But we're still above this level of support here. And we're also still below this level of resistance. If we break above this level of resistance, like I said on OkEx, you can see that there's 130%, I've left this here, 130% potential move to the upside, right? So, but again, we need to break above this level of resistance at around about 2 cents if we are to see that, okay? So for now, we'll just say that it's basically just trading sideways, and there's an accumulation cylinder going on here, right? FODL versus ETH. Have a quick drink of water, if I may. Sorry about that. So FODL versus ETH, you guys can see that we've broken above this previous level of support. Now I'm going to put this as yellow, previous level of resistance, right? So that was support, we broke below it. Now we're trying to get back above it again, right? For me, actually, I'm going to put, see, we're doing the same thing here in terms of high volume cluster here. So in fact, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to change that because I'm not sure why the row size, I'm going to put this as 600, I think. That makes a little bit more sense. Right, so you can see that we're at a low volume node there, right? So we've just broken below it. Now it makes more sense to put this level here as resistance. So what I'll do is I'll adjust these levels as the price has moved. Right, so previous level of support here. Previous level of support. We've broken below it, and so far we've not managed to get back above it, okay? So if we break above this level here, and this will be the next level of resistance, and we'll be trading inside of this range here. If we cannot break above this and this support level is now turned to resistance, then I'm afraid then we're very likely to come all the way down here. Okay, where this will be the next level of support. And that's essentially it for FODL versus ETH. Okay, of course, if we break above this level of resistance and go on to this one, then we'll have to assess. But you can see that this is a larger liquid move as well to the downside. So we could potentially going all the way up there. But for now, we're stuck in this lower range here, right? And we'll have to wait and see if we can break above it. Break above it and we go to this one. If we cannot break above it, we go to this one. Okay? So that's FODL versus ETH. Moving on to BNB USD, Binance coin. So this line here, I'm going to move it slightly so you guys can see. This line here that I put there is basically the 2021 VWAP close, right? This did not get respected, so I'm going to delete that. However, in terms of support and resistance levels that I've been adding and giving to you guys, you can see how these are getting extremely respected, right? I mean, I've given you these levels like weeks in advance. You guys know that, right? So here we are. Where did it bounce? It bounced exactly where that value area low of the current VWAP is, right? And this was the range. I had the arrows there from Monday, right? So we know that this is resistance and this is support, and that's the range that we carry on trading in, okay? Break below this one, and of course I'll expect this level here and potentially even lower, which is basically a low volume node there, right? And potentially even lower. But for now, this is the range that you want to be trading in. Okay, so this is resistance and this is support. Okay, where basically where this arrow is. Okay, and so we should be trading sideways like that, somewhere between $275 and $365. All right, so that's Binance versus ETH. Sorry, Binance versus USD. Binance versus ETH now. I highlighted this with a circle here. And here we are. We're basically rotational back inside the yearly VWAP value, okay? So basically this yearly VWAP here should act as support, and this here is acting as resistance, right? So therefore we've got this little arrow here that I drew for you guys last week, right? So this is the range that we'll be trading. We'll be trading somewhere between 1,550 way and 1,937 way, okay? So rotating like this. If, however, we break below this yearly VWAP, then the next level of support will be way down here at around about 1,280 way, okay? Basically entering this low, high volume cluster there, all right? But I do expect this to hold as very strong support on Binance versus ETH, okay? So that's it for Binance versus ETH, or BNB versus ETH. Let's move on to AAVE USD. And again, nothing much has changed, right? So we're seeing BNB still in the range that I formed for you guys last week, and so is AAVE, right? So this is resistance, this is support, and therefore we're trading inside of this range, okay? So we're looking at $76 as support, $110 as resistance. If we break below that one, we can expect much lower prices way down here, around about $53, $52, right? Which is basically where this low volume area is. If we do break above it, then I expect this level here to act as strong resistance as $136. That's basically where the yearly VWAP is, right? So I'll adjust this again, bring it down to match the yearly VWAP. Okay, so that's basically where we are with AAVE versus USD. We're still stuck in the range. Okay, the important thing to notice here is that we were doing high, higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low, higher high, higher lows, all the way up to here, and now we've broken that. We've broken that market structure, right? So this is the previous lows, and we've just gone below, right? So potentially, even if we do see a rally to the upside, we might not reach this level exactly. We might stay stopped just below this little apex here. Okay, so it would potentially be, actually I'll do that anyway, moving this a little bit lower like this. Okay, so let's just delete these brush marks second, right? So I would expect something like this in here, right, to be the next levels. Okay, just because again this apex here is now going to be strong resistance. Okay, not so much up here, but actually way down here on this daily order block. All right, which is also the edge of this high volume cluster, as you can see. So let's just wait and see if we can find support here. If we do, then basically that's the range that we'll be trading in, like this. All right, so that's AAVE versus USD. AAVE versus ETH, we've broken below support. Okay, so AAVE looking weak versus ETH. Okay, so with that, I did put this level down here. So this was the range that we were in. Breaking below the yearly VWAP would mean almost certainly that we'll go to the next level of support, which will be here. And that's exactly what we're doing now. Okay, so let me just delete those levels there. I'm going to change this to red now. This should be strong resistance. So you can see high volume cluster, high volume cluster. So we kind of bounced there. The market wants to rally up. It's not liking this level here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this line, and I'm going to put this line to here. And I'm going to say that this here is the next, this here is the next range that we'll be trading in. Okay? So I'll put that there, like that. Okay, so that's basically what we're seeing right now. We're going to be trading in between this range here as resistance and this range here as support. If we break below that one, then this will be the next level of support, which is the value area low, as you can see here, right? If we break above that one, then this will be the next level of resistance. But for now, we're trading inside of this level here. Okay, and we'll be trading inside of this volume cluster here. So that's AAVE versus ETH. Moving on to Compound USD. Compound looking weak as well versus USD. So we broke below these levels of support, right? So I expect a lot of this is going to happen because, like I said, when Bitcoin pulls back, everything pulls back. So here we are. This was the next level of support, should now be resistance. This is support and this is support, and that's exactly where we are. As you can see here, there's a low volume node. So for now, I expect that we trade between this range here, with this low volume node acting as support. However, if we do break below that one, then this here could be the next level of support here. Okay, as you can see here, previous level of support. All right, so we'll be trading between here and here, and do a little range in here like this. If we break above that, then this is the next level of resistance. Okay, the yearly VWAP all the way up there. Compound versus ETH. Okay, there's a little bit of a gap going on there. So this level got taken. So let me just delete all these brush marks a second. All right. So this level here, we're kind of still holding that as support. So I'm going to leave that. I might put that as yellow, right? So we've got potentially two things happening. We're right at that level now, okay? Even though it does say that we're way down here, it looks like we're still there. So let me just, we have two levels here. So we got basically, this is resistance. This way down here is support. this is a pivot level here in the middle, right? Except above this, and we've got this range. Except below that, and we've got this range. With that pivot level, with a high volume node there being resistance. Okay, so that's basically where we are right now with Compound versus ETH on Kraken here. So it's unclear here in terms of like, let me just see this on the 4-hour now. It's very fractured, and this is perhaps not the best chart to be charting on Compound. I should perhaps be on Dex screen now, but there we are. This is basically what I'm looking at. It does look like we are accepting below, so that this here will be the range that we'll be trading in. Okay, so between the lower boundary, if you like. BAT versus USD. Okay, so clearly here, a very clear deviation here. So let me just this is really important. Alright, so basically we had a very strong range here. Very important range. We were ranging there for ages. And we deviated above. It did look on Monday as we broken above, came here and confirmed it as support. Therefore, I put that yellow as line because I said, let's see if that holds as support. This will be the next level of resistance. And that means that we'll be trading this range here. Right? It looked bullish at the time. However, it wasn't to be. That was just a deviation, and therefore when said as a deviation and it accepts back inside the range, what happens is we go straight to the other side of the range, and here we are, and that's exactly where we bounced. So the range continues to be inside of here, and that's the eternal range that BAT versus USD has been in, right? So 36 cents as support and 42 cents as resistance. Okay, and that's basically the range that we're trading in. So this is resistance and this here is support. Break below it, you can see that there's deviations do occur to the downside, and you'll be looking at this level here as support and this level here as support as well. So that's BAT versus USD. Moving on to BAT versus ETH. Broken below that, so let me just delete some of these brush marks. Things change all the time, right? So even though it did act as support and we saw a little bit of a consolidation here, eventually it broke through. So that's what I mean by it doesn't matter what TA I do, these levels are not gospel. If Bitcoin's pulling back, everything pulls back, right? So you have to keep an eye on Bitcoin. So with that out of the way, let's move on. This is here resistance now. So I expect this to be strong resistance, perhaps a little bit higher like this, which is this high volume cluster there. And so therefore I expect this to be the range here now on on BAT versus ETH. Okay, so this is resistance and this here should be support. If this fails as support, then I'm afraid that we'll be looking at this level down here, this order block down here, as the next level of support. So I'll be putting another line there, changing that to green. Okay, so that's basically what we're looking at. We're trading inside of this range here. So that was BAT versus ETH. Link versus USD. I expect all of these ranges to be done for, and here we are. So okay, strong impulse on Bitcoin means that we go back below and we go back into this eternal range that we're at, right? So even though this had acted as strong resistance, and this previous resistance should have acted as support, it didn't. Okay, so actually the next range is that this is resistance here, this here should hold as support, right? So we'll be trading inside of this high volume cluster here. Okay, so you can expect this type of price action now inside of this range. All right, so that's a pretty decent range to be trading, somewhere between $6 and $7.80. So that's on Link versus USD. Link versus ETH. Again, yet another line broken. So let's put this one as red now. I'm going to delete some of these brush marks. Right, so I do expect this now to be resistance, and here this is sketchy. There's not much in the way of volume there. So actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this lower. I'm going to put this like this, even though the value area low is there. I'm going to put this one here as support just because of the volume structure. Okay, so I'll be looking at this range now Okay, break above that, then of course this is going to be resistance. Break below this one, and of course this is going to be support. So that's Link versus ETH. Finally, Uni versus USD. I don't really need to change that much other than change this to red. As you can see, we couldn't break above this level of resistance. So this here is now going to be resistance. This level down here is now going to be support. Okay, and therefore we'll be trading inside of this range. Break above that, this will be the next level of resistance. Break below that, this here will be the next level of support. For now, we're trading inside of this range here. Okay, somewhere between $6.60 and $8. Uni versus ETH. Now this is interesting. Strong level of support here. We're still kind of holding on to it, so I'm not particularly sure if this is going to break below or not. So I think I'm going to leave this as it is for now. But Uni versus ETH, it looks like it still wants to trade between these two levels here. And this looks like a massive range actually. So I might actually divide this. Although there's hardly any volume there. You can see a little bit of a structure in terms of volume. So let me just delete this mark now. Delete these. Right. So see if I can find some volume structures there. Here we are. Be looking at this here as resistance, this here as resistance, and potentially this level here as resistance as well. Okay, so we could find ourselves now just ranging below this previous level of support that should now act as resistance, right? So we could be finding ourselves like this in here, right? But we've got a yearly VWAP there. In fact, what I'm going to do, just excuse me just a second, I'm going to correct this. I'm going to put this here, I'm going to delete this to make it a little bit easier to understand, right? So here we are. This now should be resistance, this here should be support, and therefore we should be trading inside of this range here. Break above it, this will be the next level of resistance. Break below it, and I think more importantly, this level here should be support. I'm not too keen on these levels here, I'm afraid, so I'm just going to delete them. Just because the volume is sketchy here, there's not really much in the way of volume there. There's a low volume node here, but it's not enough for me to want to say that that is support. Okay, you can argue that that is support because it's a previous level of resistance here, so I could leave that there, but I'm afraid I'm going to make it a little bit fainter because I don't see it as a very strong level of support. Okay, so again, this is the range that you'll be trading in. If it breaks above it, this is resistance. If it breaks below it, we're looking at this level for support, although there is potential for a little bounce here around about 349. Okay, so that is it for now. I hope that this helps you stay on the right side of the trades. If we look back at Bitcoin, just see where we are, it does look like we're finding support here at this monthly previous month VWAP close, so we'll have to wait and see. I think I've made it very clear, I don't want to repeat myself again, but there's no need to rush into a trade. We could be definitely finding a little bottom here and do a little range here, but considering that the S&P is on its way down, even on all time frames, right, and it wants to have a little pullback, a deeper pullback if you like, then I wouldn't be in a rush to be going long on Bitcoin just yet. I could be completely wrong and the S&P might rally from here, but as you can see, we had very strong higher time frame signal here, signaling a short, right? So now we're going to try and find buyers, and it depends where we find the buyers, but I do believe that we could be heading down below 4,100 points. So with that out of the way, that's the recap done. I hope this puts you in the right side of the trades for the whole of the weekend. I'll be back on Monday with another TA update. In the meantime, take care, have a great weekend, and trade smart. Bye-bye.